Did it, Jonathan. All right, good show.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
I'm Joey, and this is Paula Reed, Trevor Reed's parents. Thank you all for coming today, and thanks for all of you who we've seen, some of you several times before. And and we like to say this right off the bat, it's, you know, you're also a big part of why Trevor's home today, and you can thank yourselves for that. Without the media and public attention, our government doesn't work the way it's supposed to, and the media makes that happen. And in our case, you've done a wonderful job, and we want to thank you for that.
From the bottom of our hearts, seriously, thank you.
So, and I guess I guess real quick, I should also mention certain people in the media at the national level. Patrick Reed with ABC News. While I was in Russia for 14 months, he and some other correspondents there befriended me, and they covered his story. The story was originally broken by a reporter for the New York Times, and then followed up the next week with ABC and Reuters. And then it kind of took off from there. And then Jonathan Franks here, with the help of Montel Williams, helped us several months down the road start bringing, you know, all that together and getting our word out about our son. So we want to thank them in particular, and Jake Tapper from CNN, who's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And and everybody at all the networks. But
so the little local guys are okay.
Oh no, we love all you local guys. We're saying, like, y'all stood out in the rain and the snow with us at the VA Center, so we appreciate that, really.
And I'll have to pull out my list to go through all of you. So,
yeah.
So about today,
we got a call early in the morning.
well, we've had several interviews already today, so we'll just kind of go over what we've been asked before. Is we had a little forewarning that something might happen this week. You know, because they didn't want to just, you know, wake us in the middle of the night, and obviously the government knew something was brewing, and so we had that, and so, you know, we were on pins and needles every phone call. You know, we're hoping that will be the call. And then this morning, about, what was it, about 4, something like that, we got a call from Roger Carstens, the SPIHA, Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, and he said, hey Joey, I've got somebody here I think that y'all might want to talk to. And so it was our son, obviously, and they were in the air, and I believe they were flying out of Turkey, where the exchange took place.
Yeah, and the first phone call that we got from Trevor, we've had 2 today. So the first phone call we got, he did not sound like himself. He was very subdued, and we were hyped up and all excited and kind of expected him to be excited as well, but he wasn't. So I don't know if it was just shock or if it was too early in the morning for him or whatever, but he was not his normal self, so that kind of concerned us. But later in the afternoon, we got a second phone call, and you know, he must have eaten and had some fluids in him, and he was his normal self. So he was happy-go-lucky, and he's, you know, he still looks terrible, but he sounded better. He sounded more like himself. He was cracking jokes and talking, you know, for a few minutes, and so he was more like Trevor.
We introduced him to some of the people from the DOD and the State Department who were here helping us today, and introduced them, and then we asked him some questions, and he was, you know, making some smart remarks about, you know, his ordeal, and in particular today. We asked him if he said anything to Mr. Yaroshenko as they passed
each other
on the tarmac, and he said no, but we kind of looked at each other, and I asked him, you didn't say anything to him in Russian, because Trevor, through his ordeal, now speaks fluent Russian. So his going to Russia to learn some Russian for his college courses here, that end of it was probably the only positive thing about his entire ordeal in
Although
Russia.
he paid for those Russian lessons, and the prisoners in the jail said, you didn't have to pay for those, we're going to teach you Russian here.
Right. So anyway, and then after we spoke to him the first time this morning, we were obviously watching the news, and we started seeing the videos of him getting out of the FSB van, and with his guards, and it looked like they were having to help him walk. He was kind of walking hunched over. It looked strange to us, like somebody who was shackled, and then they had to help him get into the plane, and his eyes looked sunken in, you know, from dehydration or malnourishment. And from what he's told us and told Lena, his girlfriend, for months, you know, the food at IK-12 in Mordovia is horrible. They generally, for dinner, give you a piece of fish and some soup, and they throw in a piece of potato or cabbage with it. And the stray cats at the prison and the barracks won't eat the fish, and neither will any of the Russian prisoners. And they asked my son, why do you eat the fish? And he said, because that's the only place I can get any protein. And so he was very conscious about his physical conditioning before he left. When he left here, he was in great shape, and went to the gym, worked out, and was muscular. And
he ate very clean, very healthily.
So he thinks about his nutrition, and which he's had none for almost 3 years.
Yes.
So.
How relieved are you right now? I mean, you've been thinking about this for a long time. How relieved are you at this moment?
It's not going to hit us until we see him.
I mean, we're excited. We know he's on the plane, but I think it's going to really hit us when we get to put our arms around him and hug him.
So we think they're in the air. We don't know where they're going to go yet. There's apparently more than one doctor on the military aircraft, and so they're doing initial evaluations of him, and that will determine what military hospital he goes to, and then they'll let us know, and then we're gonna. I don't care where they go. We're gonna go there, and but we believe it will be stateside somewhere, and then he's going to have in-depth head-to-toe evaluations. That may take a couple of days or a few days. Testing, in particular testing for tuberculosis. Right now they have him in some sort of an isolation tent or a bubble on the plane, and so they'll be testing him for those things, and then of course he'll get some counseling and stuff to ensure that he doesn't have long-lasting emotional problems, PTSD from his ordeal. And so when we totally support all of that, and we're very thankful to both the State Department and the DOD for arranging that. And then after that, that could be weeks. And then once we get him back home, we're kind of glad this is the summer, and give him a little time. We know he's going to want to go back to college right away, and so of course we're going to discourage the summer semester and go for the fall, and then hopefully get him back on track to where he was headed before he went to Russia.
What did you say to him in that phone call this afternoon or this morning? Can you give us an idea of what that conversation was?
Well, this morning we just, I love you. It's a bunch of I love yous, and we'll see you soon. That kind of thing. Because, like I said, because he was very subdued, we didn't really.
How are you? And he gave us the pat answer. I'm okay. I'm okay.
He always says he's okay, even when he isn't. But so that was the first phone call, and then this afternoon when he called, like I said, he was a little more animated, and he was telling us funny stories about things that are happening on the plane with the people who are with him, and just how he's feeling, and then we, like I said, we had Department of Defense people here and State Department, and he was on a face call, so we let him talk to everyone and meet everyone in the room, and he just seemed like his normal self.
He got to read a Hot Rod magazine in English today, so I don't think he's read much. Well, he did get some books finally at the last prison he was in. First 2 years he had 2 books in English. They refused to give him books in English. They refused to allow him letters in English. All of the letters that he wrote to us had to be handwritten in Russian. Again, not things that we do to Russian prisoners in our prisons.
Did you ever start to lose hope that maybe this day wouldn't come?
We planned for the worst, and as our son said,
we always say plan for the worst, hope for the best, but Trevor says
plan for the worst and don't hope for the best.
Yeah.
And he said, if you have any hope, don't tell me about it, because I don't want to get my hopes up to be dashed. I'd rather just plan on being here for 9 years or longer. We always feared that they would add additional false charges. That's a regular FSB tactic to keep someone or get something from them. So we always feared that might happen. And we don't want to go without saying this. We want to thank President Biden.
Absolutely.
We have so many people to thank. We'd be here all day. Our Congressman August Pfluger, just wonderful, fantastic. He talks to us every few days. We've spoken to him today. We'll probably
4 or 5 times.
Probably see him tomorrow. And Senator Cornyn for his actions, and for both supporting the president and his efforts to bring Trevor and other hostages home. This is not a partisan issue. We say, an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. It is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. When these foreign countries or terrorist groups take an American, they don't care whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. You're an American, and we need to stand together. That's what Americans do. When somebody attacks us, we come together, and that's what they've done in our son's case. And we want the president to do that, and not just this president, all presidents, to do that for all Americans in this situation. But we're so thankful for President Biden meeting with us and then taking this swift action after meeting with him. We believe that he probably saved our son's life.
Paula, Lupi Sabatha with Spectrum News.
Hi.
I met with your friend Crystal earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
She started tearing up when I asked her, what this meant to her. She said this was the perfect Mother's Day gift for you coming up.
It absolutely
what
is.
does that mean to you coming home for Mother's Day?
It's absolutely the perfect gift. And when we got the call early in the week, when they said something might be occurring this week, and I said, am I going to have a happy Mother's Day? And they go, well, we can't say, but just, be ready. So, yes, it's a perfect Mother's Day. It's better, well, not better, but almost as good as the day he was born. So,
in light of this gift that you got today, what would you say to the families of Paul Whelan and Brittany Griner right now?
okay, so we have a close relationship with the Whelan family, and we talk to them regularly all the time. So our hearts were a little broken when we found out that it wasn't going to, the deal was not going to include Paul, and so our hearts go out to them. We texted with them. We know she knows that. Their family knows that. And as far as Brittany's family goes, we're going to decline to speak about her because we think that that's what her people want. They don't want us to talk about her, so we don't want to do that and make anything worse for her case. But we hope that the Whelan family is going to be having a reunion just like ours soon.
We believed at one point before our government started considering this trade, which I think the Russians had basically been directly or indirectly suggesting for a year or two, that if they were to take our son and not Paul Whelan, that our son might try and refuse to come home, not wanting to leave another.
He doesn't want to leave another Marine there, and him and Paul got to talk through messages and stuff occasionally. So they,
But, no.
we relayed messages.
Yeah, from his family
For his family to us, to them back to
yeah.
those kind of messages. But and at first we thought there was going to be a deal to bring them both home, and I think that it was going to be really hard for Trevor. But
and again, that's another thing about the bipartisan support. As long as there's not some crazies in Congress that come out against the president for this action, and the administration can feel more comfortable that it is a true American issue, then maybe they'll be more open to making more deals to bring Americans home, not just exchanges, but whatever it takes to bring them home.
Just given what's going on in Ukraine, was there ever a concern that could impact the effort to bring him home?
Absolutely, because, like we said earlier, we have been told by the State Department all along that these things work on different channels, but, you get kind of skeptical of that when you see a war breaking out. And we had been speaking with everyone, asking them, please bring Trevor home before the war in Ukraine breaks out, please, please, please. And that didn't happen. So I have to say, in the first few days after it happened and we were told that the communications were cut for a little bit, we were a little bit down. But then they said in the next week, okay, we're speaking again. So, there was a moment when we got worried about it.
And we're not sure what part it played. It had to have played some impact or some part in the story. But Governor Richardson and Mickey Bergman borrowed a plane from the CEO
Federal Express.
of Federal Express and flew to Moscow literally days before the war broke out.
The day of the war.
And they engaged high-level Russian officials about some sort of a trade, which is what they do. And they had some sort of an agreement, some sort of tentative agreement, and I think they brought that back. And then the United States government, I think, saw that opening and then took the opening on their own to accomplish that. But we appreciate everything that the governor and Mickey did to try and bring our son and Paul Whelan home.
Mr. Reed, so many of the details are still under wraps. Have you been briefed on how this negotiation came to pass and how your son's release came to fruition today?
Not really. What we just told you is all we know, and everything else is just complete speculation.
We've been told we will know later, but not immediately.
We'll know when we see it on the news.
And here's a boring question. You're both sporting Camp David shirts. Can you tell us why?
Oh.
Well, we just happened to put them on, and mine's different than hers, I think. So, but our son was a presidential guard under the Obama-Biden administration, and all the people who work there, they have a family day. And you get vetted and all that, and then you can go and they have the Marine Corps band and the silent drill team, and then your loved one gets to actually take you on a private tour of Camp David and see where the president lives and the visitors and the pool and and all those things, and have a big cookout and all those things. And so we got to go there and see that.
And we always get souvenir T-shirts anywhere we go, Disneyland, San Diego Zoo, Yosemite, wherever. So we had to get a T-shirt. We had to get a shirt. So
we never had any idea that we would be wearing them for this type of situation.
Yeah,
so.
right.
You've thought a lot about this way more than the average person, obviously, but do you think the leaders could come together and maybe minimize, if not stop, all these conflicts so that other families don't have to go through this?
Oh, absolutely. And we think this is a good sign that it's going to maybe hopefully start the ball rolling and lots of things will come out of this. So
whether it be our internal politics or international politics, the governments never want to be the first one to put something forward, and then even when something good happens, they're very shy about saying that it was a good thing or that this could lead to something else because of fear of what it could lead to either internally in Russia or here. So both sides are going to deny that this will have any impact on anything else, but we hope behind the scenes that it does.
Well, yeah, because I already heard someone today that they were saying, well, it was only because Trevor was sick, and that that may be, but that's fine for us that it brought him home.
We have plenty of sick American hostages and detainees right now in Venezuela and China and several countries, and again, if sickness is the reason, then we need
to bring them all home.
Can you speak at all to like the time and the money that you invested over the last 3 years?
Well, we really don't like to give that number out, but because our son doesn't know, and if he did, he would be so angry with us. So early on, he told us, do not pay for that attorney, do not spend that much money, blah, blah, blah. And we said, Trevor, we're going to do whatever it costs. And he said, don't do it. There was several discussions with Joey and arguments about that, so we are not giving that number out.
Have you been able to speak to President Biden today, and what did he have to say?
Well, okay, so this is an interesting story. So we're on the phone with Trevor on that initial phone call, and on my phone that we're on talking to Trevor, I see Defense Department, which is the Situation Room at the White House.
But we do know that.
And so I hit the button, call you later, right? and so we're still talking to Trevor, and then her phone rings and he goes, it's the president. So I hung up on the president. I'm sorry, Mr. President, didn't mean to do that. But so anyway, they connected through. We told Trevor, hey, the president's calling on the other line. And so the president was talking to us, and Trevor was kind of on hold, and Trevor was having a hard time hearing us. But then the president says, hey, I would have called you earlier, but I didn't want to mess anything up, and I didn't want to wake you up in the middle of the night, but I understand that he's on the plane. And we said, we're talking to him right now, and he goes, oh, well, hey, you need to talk to him. You'd rather talk to him than me, so I'll get off here. But he says, I want to have your family come to see me in the White House, and I'm so glad that we were able to get him out of there. And we told him we
were thankful and we're grateful, and that when we saw him, obviously we were going to give him a couple of big hugs, and he said he would give us some big hugs back. So
yeah.
Did you expect
We've said for a year, any of you who followed us, that we believe if we can just get to the boss, if we can get to the top man in our government, the executive, that we can make this thing happen because of his personality and what Americans know about him. You may not like his politics, you may not like certain things about him, but anyone who says that he's not compassionate and kind man is a liar, or they are just an idiot. Okay, so and we've learned that firsthand, and we want him to do the same thing for other Americans and get them out of there. And yes, and we think it had a major impact, that and our son's illness, and probably Governor Richardson's visit. So that there were several things in play here, but our visit was. And thank you for being there.
You briefly spoke of the video of your son earlier today that was released, and you talked about it looking like he appeared to be shackled. Can you walk me through just those moments of seeing that footage? What was going through your mind and your heart?
Well, she was sitting on the couch and I was sitting on a chair, so I couldn't see her face, but I know I was crying when I was I'd seen it. I was talking to someone and kind of saw it out of the corner of my eye earlier, but when they started showing it again, I looked at it and I went, oh my gosh, because like I said, it looked like he was hunched over and he was kind of walking like this, and they grabbed his bag and then they were helping him get up in the plane.
He looked very frail, and and immediately, like Joey said, I immediately tears just came to my face because he just didn't look like himself, and that's a really hard thing to see, And I said, because he's used so healthy normally.
And I'm thinking shackles because his girlfriend got to visit him once at the prison camp the same day that Ambassador Sullivan went there, and that was the only way that they would let her see him, I think, that day. But anyway, when she went to get her pass at the window, they said, you're here to see the American? And she said, yes. And they said, well, how long do you know him? And she says, well, I've been dating him for 5 years, and he's my fiance. And they said, well, you know, he's an American spy. And she's like, he's not a spy. And so the reason we believe they said that was when they brought him to the prison camp, they brought him in a heavily armed convoy with all fully geared up, like tactical officers carrying AK-47s, and he was shackled. And all the prison guards are like, what is going on? They don't bring you to prison like that in Russia.
So,
you know, even if you're a mass murderer. So there was also all these rumors started. So, and we still kind of wonder, why in the world did they do that? They're in the middle of Russia. It's not like someone's going to try
and then, like you said, his body looked hunched over. So we thought he was shackled, and we even asked him on the phone, were you shackled? And he said no. But he just looked like he was not walking very well.
But even today, he said there were about 20 FSB agents with him in the truck and on the plane. And then he told us before we saw the video later, the other video that's out is of the swap actually going down. And he said it was crazy. They parked the planes next to each other, and we got out and we crossed past each other like something in a movie. and then they started showing it on TV, and it's crazy. That's exactly what it looked like.
And we know a few details about what your son went through behind bars, nutritionally, health-wise. Can you talk about, as his parents, what you endured for the past 3 years, and how you were able to get on with day-to-day life every day?
Well, as he was losing weight, we were gaining weight.
Well, we gained weight. We lost. Yeah, it was just a
and you know, hair and everything.
Yeah,
else.
yeah. My hair went white, and it's just a lot of things. Like I said, a lot of things bad for us, but you know, nothing in comparison, obviously, to what he went through. But it has been hard. It's been really a lot of stress between Joey and I, between our, you know, and our daughter. I feel for my daughter because. Like she says, it's all things Trevor. So we kind of joke about it. And so she'll say, Mom, I want to come over and see you. So it's no thanks Trevor this weekend. And I go, okay, that's fine. But it's just, you know, it's all consuming. It really is. And it's just been hard. And, you know, you have to keep functioning and get on with your life and do things. But it is hard. And every time you go somewhere fun or whatever, like I see things and I think, oh my God, Trevor would love that. You know, or this would be cool, Trevor, if Trevor was here. So it's just been hard.
And we, you know, we'll still do, you know, things. We'll go out to eat, or you know, we'll go. You know, I go to a movie occasionally, but you know, every time you do, you feel guilty.
Yeah.
You know, like what's happening with Trevor right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's what all these hostage families are living with every day. It's like you can't, anything that you would take for granted normally, you're like, oh my God, they you know, our loved one would give anything to have this simple meal or a walk down the street or a drive in a car.
Oh, like a perfect example. Right before Trevor got arrested, we bought 4 tickets to go to the Dallas Cowboy game. We'd never all done that before. So we were all going to go for the first time together. And then he got arrested, and then we had, you know, he wasn't going to be there. And I was like, I don't want to go, you know, and Joey said, no, we have to go because we can't stop living. You know, we have to go.
We didn't enjoy the game.
Yeah.
And besides, I'm not a Cowboy fan, but...
Say that
by the way, so our son is and myself are big Texas Rangers fans. In fact, if you look at most of our pictures online,
they're all wearing Ranger baseball.
He's wearing a Texas Rangers shirt in almost every picture that we posted, and so they built a new stadium since he's been gone. So we're looking forward to taking him there to see that and not you know, lose 5 pounds of sweat, you know, in the middle of the summer. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully, you know, they'll do well this season. No comments.
Yeah.
So, but we want to make a couple other comments. We love Alina, Trevor's girlfriend, fiance. I've spoken to her several times today. She's sending us videos and news reports coming out of Russia, and so anyway, and we miss her, and we wish that she was going to be here when Trevor comes home. She was crying.
She's crying when she found out that he had already left Russia.
And all of our friends in Russia, I mean, the Russian people were always so wonderful to us. And, you know, I've gotten so many, you know, congratulations, and we're so happy from our friends, our translators, our attorneys in Russia.
News people, reporters in Russia.
So we just want people to remember that the war going on right now, there's bad things happening. There's always bad things that happen from any military in a war. And so those things happening by certain people in their military and by their government, like what they've done to Trevor, that is not the Russian people. And sometimes the Russian people are being misguided, as some people in our country are misguided. And we just have to remember that when you don't ever be mean to a Russian person that you see on the street in America, because they're not responsible for this. In fact, they're probably here because of that.
Yeah.
So just remember that.
Can you tell us about what's next for you two? What are your plans tonight, tomorrow, in the coming weeks?
Like I said, we're waiting for the Department of Defense to tell us where Trevor's going to be, and then wherever he's going to be, we're going to be there. So we don't know what all that's going to involve yet, but and they told us they'll make arrangements or whatever for us to be there, and they will accommodate us once we get there. So.
And in the next month, I'll be looking for a job to help pay for some of our expenses. So if anybody knows of a small town that needs a fire chief, I'm available and totally certified. So.
And I'm not going to work. I'm going to stay home with Trevor every day and make him anything he wants every day. His favorite meal every day.
Is this home for Trevor? Is this where he will?
He was living here at the time, but when he comes back, he's going to want to go to. He may change schools and he may go far away, but wherever he goes, I'm going to go to college with him. I will be there with him.
And I've seen several neighbors stop by and drop off flowers. It seems like you guys are a really close community. How are they feeling about all this, and how involved were they with all of this?
Well, I think people, our friends and our neighbors, I think they largely feel like us. You feel kind of helpless, like what is it we can do? You know, I mean, we meet people and they say, what can we do? They see our stickers on our cars, or they recognize us and say, you know, you can write an email to the president, you can call it doesn't do any good to call your congressman and your senator, because they're already on board. You know, we've already had resolutions in Congress, and so it was really a matter of just prayers and you know, some emails, and so people feel kind of hopeless. But man, I mean, all of our neighbors today are like,
it's great. And then like our community's really, it's a smaller community, and everybody's been really nice to us, especially because, you know, we haven't lived here but maybe
10 years.
Yeah, but you know, Trevor wasn't living here, and so but for them to get on board, and we have posters and signs of Trevor all over town. You know, and I've got like 4 or 5 messages of people saying, let us know when Trevor's coming home, or we're going to just turn the whole town yellow with ribbons on every tree. You know, so we have a great support in Granbury.
Thank you all so very much. Thank you.
Okay, we're good.
Right. Thank you again, everybody.
Yes, really, thank you. Thank you. If anybody needs a bottle of water or anything.
Thanks to everybody for coming out.
Yeah.
If you need anything, you all know where to find me. I'm sorry I've been so slow on emails. But
yeah, he's been slacking all day, you know, just been slacking.
I've got about 150 I haven't gotten to.
So we'll get there. We appreciate you guys. You're a large part of the reason we have today. So thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.